What if I told you that 72% of failed startups in Silicon Valley didn't collapse because of bad products or funding gaps, but because founders couldn't see through their customers' eyes? Picture this. A team spends millions crafting a perfect app interface, only to realize users think it's confusing as a maze. Or a Fortune 500 exec greenlights a $10 million ad campaign that alienates the very demographic they targeted. Why does this keep happening? Because genius-level spreadsheets and org charts don't teach you the one skill that separates thriving businesses from graveyard logos: perspective shifting. At Profit Architects, we engineer profit, but first we engineer understanding. Here's the truth. Markets don't care how smart your strategy is if it's built in a vacuum. Your product isn't failing because it's good enough. It's failing because you're designing it for yourself, not the people who hold your revenue in their hands. The same goes for teams, partnerships, even investor pitches. You think like a CEO? Try thinking like the frazzled mom struggling to navigate your checkout page, or the junior employee who sees your vision as corporate BS. In this video, we'll break down why perspective shifting isn't some fluffy empathy exercise. It's a ruthless competitive advantage. You'll see how Netflix crushed Blockbuster by eliminating late fees, a pain point Reed Hastings felt as a customer, or how Starbucks engineered a $25 billion valuation by treating coffee as a third home, not a commodity. By the end, you won't just get the concept, you'll know exactly how to weaponize it. So, ready to stop guessing what others want and start engineering it? Hit play. Profit isn't found, it's engineered. Here's the brutal truth. 80% of Fortune 500 companies fail not because of bad products. They fail because leaders design strategies from a vacuum. At Profit Architects, we don't guess. We engineer outcomes by stepping into the shoes of the people who control our revenue. Products crash not because they're bad. They crash because founders design them for themselves, not the frazzled mom struggling at 3 a.m. campaigns implode, not from budget cuts, but from ignoring the emotional pulse of the market. Teams quit not because you're a terrible boss, but because you've never lived their grind. Perspective shifting isn't a buzzword. It's the weapon that turns guesses into precision. Take Apple. Steve Jobs didn't build the Genius Bar because he loved tech support. He watched his mother fumble with syncing her iPod. That frustration became a $40 billion revenue engine. Google didn't invent 20% time to be cool. Engineers realized creativity dies under micromanagement, so they engineered freedom. Result? Gmail, Maps, and AdWords, all born from lived insight. This isn't empathy. It's ruthless foresight. Companies that master perspective shifting see 3x faster product adoption, 40% higher retention, and 25% lower turnover. Why? Because they stop guessing and start engineering understanding. Let's cut through the noise with hard truths from the battlefield. First, the Silicon Valley cautionary tale. An edtech startup burned $2.3 million building an AI-powered language app hailed as the future of learning. Their downfall? Zero user testing. Founders assumed sleek design equals success. But when a mentor asked, "Have you ever been a frustrated learner?" they realized their app felt like a pop quiz, not a lesson. No onboarding, no intuitive flow, just confusion. After redesigning with real user pain points, like 30-second loading times for beginners, retention jumped 40%. Lesson? Genius dies in a vacuum. Profit isn't found. It's engineered by feeling the struggle. Then there's Ray Kroc, the man who turned 2 California burger stands into a $40 billion empire, while competitors micromanage spreadsheets. Kroc scrubbed toilets. Literally. He'd show up unannounced, mop floors, and chat with customers about fry temperatures. Why? Because seeing a messy kitchen isn't the same as smelling the grease. When he discovered staff hid expired patties under fresh ones to pass audits, he restructured incentives, not rules. Result? 98% franchise compliance. Operations so smooth. Even a teenager could flip burgers like clockwork. Now, Tony C. Zappos. In 2000, selling shoes online was risky. But he didn't just ship boxes. he engineered joy. Call Zappos at 2 a.m. A rep might sing happy birthday. Yes, really. One customer got a bouquet after mentioning her dad's passing. Skeptics called it fluffy until Zappos hit $1 billion revenue with 75% repeat buyers. How? By asking, what does loneliness feel like at 3 a.m.? Profit isn't found. It's engineered by becoming your customer's confidant. Here's the pattern. The best leaders don't guess, they live. They swap spreadsheets for scrub brushes, late-night calls for late-night empathy. And when they do, markets reward them like ATMs. Next, we'll decode how to turn this mindset into a repeatable formula. Here's the brutal truth. 80% of Fortune 500 companies fail not because they lack execution. They fail because leaders design strategies from vacuum. Perspective shifting isn't a buzzword. It's your cheat code to seeing what competitors can't see. At Profit Architects, we don't just analyze markets, we reverse engineer them. Perspective shifting means stepping out of your spreadsheet, your corner office, your ego, and living inside the skin of the people who control your revenue. It's asking, what does a 4 a.m. shift feel like for your warehouse staff? How does a single mom navigate your checkout page while her kid melts down? What keeps your top engineer awake at night? This isn't empathy for Hallmark cards. It's tactical foresight. Here's why it works. When you think like your customer, you kill friction before they do. Apple's Genius Bars exist because Jobs realized people don't buy gadgets. They buy confidence. When you think like your employee, you reduce churn. Google's 20% time policy didn't come from HR. It came from engineers who knew creativity dies under micromanagement. When you think like your enemy, you dodge their punches. Microsoft didn't survive the browser wars by accident. They reverse engineered Netscape's vulnerabilities from the user's chair. This isn't just theory. It's math. Companies that practice perspective shifting see 3x faster product adoption, 40% higher customer retention, and 25% lower employee turnover. Why? Because they stop guessing and start engineering outcomes. You're not losing because you're dumb. You're losing because you're only playing chess from one side of the board. At Profit Architects, we build profits by building understanding. Stick around as we break down exactly how to weaponize this mindset. Let's dissect the playbooks of titans who didn't just win markets. They rewrote the rules by living inside their customer's skin. Take Steve Jobs. In 2001, Apple was a niche computer brand. Jobs didn't ask engineers, how do we build the best MP3 player? He asked, what's the first thing a 60-year-old grandmother touches when she unwraps this? The answer? A scroll wheel. No buttons. No manual. Just a ring you flicked with your thumb. The iPod wasn't a gadget. It was a ritual. And when Jobs realized people hated fumbling with styluses, a lesson from his own frustration, he killed the pen for the iPhone. Our fingers are the best tools, he said. Result? 200 million iPhones sold in 10 years. But here's the masterstroke, Apple stores. While competitors cram products behind glass, Jobs stood in malls watching people look, not buy. He saw awe, hesitation. So he designed stores like art galleries, open spaces, no cashiers. Genius bars where tech felt human. Profit isn't found, it's engineered. Howard Schultz of Starbucks? He didn't sell coffee. He sold belonging. In 1983, Schultz visited Milan and saw cafes as community hubs. He didn't copy espresso machines. He copied the vibe. Back home, he scribbled names on cups because he'd watched a customer laugh when her latte was called order number 17. People want to be seen, he realized. So Starbucks added sofas, warm lighting, and playlists curated by time of day. Why? Because Schultz once sat for hours in his own stores, noting how cold plastic chairs made people leave faster. Profit isn't found, it's engineered. Jeff Bezos built Amazon's $1.8 empire on one chair. Literally, in every meeting, an empty seat represented the customer. When designing Amazon Prime, Bezos didn't crunch shipping costs. He remembered his own rage after waiting 10 days for a book. What if I never had to wait? Prime's 2-day shipping wasn't a logistics feat. It was a rage-fueled obsession. And when a blind customer emailed about struggling with apps, Bezos didn't delegate. He launched Alexa, turning voice into commerce. Profit isn't found, it's engineered. Sam Voltan. Before Walmart ruled retail, he walked Target aisles in disguise. He noted cluttered displays, long checkout lines, and staff who couldn't find products. Back at Walmart, he cut prices 20% and stocked shelves like a shopper, not a CEO. Result? Walmart grew to 11,000 stores by 2023. Melanie Perkins of Canva, after 100 rejections, she stopped pitching investors the next Photoshop and asked, what keeps VCs awake? She rewrote her pitch with data. 75% of small businesses couldn't afford design tools. Investors wrote checks within 48 hours. Profit isn't found, it's engineered. Airbnb's Brian Chesky didn't fix their platform by reading surveys. He slept in host apartments. When he found check-in chaotic, he launched Smart Check-in, a system that auto-sends codes when guests arrive. Revenue jumped 60%. Shopify's Tobias Luckey didn't assume entrepreneurs needed a simple store builder. He opened his own shop selling snowboard parts, discovering that 80% of users got stuck on product descriptions. So Shopify added AI-generated blurbs. Profit isn't found, it's engineered. Netflix's Reed Hastings didn't blame Blockbuster for late fees. He paid them after returning Apollo 13 and owing $40. He asked, what if I could watch guilt-free? Netflix's no late fee model killed Blockbuster and created streaming. Uber's Travis Kalanick didn't just read driver complaints about app crashes. He drove for UberX under a fake name, discovering that drivers lost fares when GPS glitched. Uber rolled out real-time tracking, boosting driver retention 35% in 3 months. Profit isn't found, it's engineered. The pattern? These leaders didn't guess, they lived. Jobs became a first-time user. Schultz became a lonely customer. Bezos became a blind man. And when they did, markets rewarded them like ATMs. But here's the kicker. This isn't reserved for billionaires. At Profit Architects, we teach founders to engineer profit by engineering understanding. You don't need billions, just the guts to step into someone else's shoes. Tomorrow, I'll show you how to weaponize this mindset in your business. Let's get tactical. You've seen the legends. Now, how do you turn perspective shifting from theory into a repeatable weapon? At Profit Architects, we don't just preach mindset, we engineer systems. Here's the playbook used by Fortune 500 execs, Silicon Valley unicorns, and leaders who refuse to guess when they can know. Role 1, the customer. Start here. Your product isn't a feature list, it's an emotion. Amazon didn't dominate e-commerce because Jeff Bezos loved algorithms. He hated waiting. After paying $40 in late fees for a die-hard DVD, he asked, what if I could buy with one click? Result? Amazon's one-click patent drove $1.2 billion in first-year sales. But don't stop at your desk. Live the pain. Apple's Genius Bars exist because Jobs once watched his mother struggle to sync her iPod. He didn't delegate, he tested. When she couldn't find the sync button after 90 seconds, he killed jargon. Genius Bars became a $40 billion revenue engine. You move. Call your own hotline as a furious customer. Try ordering from your site with one hand while your kid melts down. At Profit Architects, we mandate quarterly user hell weeks. Leaders spend 8 hours trapped in their own customer journey. Why? Because friction hides where you least expect it. Role 2, the employee. Your team's loyalty isn't bought with ping pong tables. It's earned by feeling their grind. McDonald's didn't build a $40 billion empire by accident. Every manager spends 2 weeks flipping burgers, scrubbing toilets, and fielding rush hour meltdowns. Why? Because Ray Kroc knew you can't fix a drive-through bottleneck from a spreadsheet. Zappos went further. All new hires, including VPs, spend their first week in customer service. One exec discovered a backlog of unanswered emails during a midnight shift. Zappos rewrote response protocols, slashing reply times to under 2 hours. Retention jumped 25%. Your turn. Audit your culture by doing the job no one wants. At Shopify, Tobias Lutkey spent a week packing boxes in a warehouse during Black Friday. He found workers couldn't scan 500 orders/hour because the app froze every 10 minutes. Shopify rebuilt the backend. Productivity soared 30%. Profit isn't found, it's engineered. Role 3, the enemy. Here's the secret no one teaches. Beat competitors by becoming them. Netflix didn't kill Blockbuster by copying. Reed Hastings reverse-engineered Blockbuster's weakness. Late fees from the customer's chair. But go deeper. Microsoft survived the browser wars by simulating a Netscape attack. Bill Gates asked, "If I were Mark Andreessen, how would I destroy IE?" Result? Microsoft prioritized integration with Windows, crushing Netscape in 18 months. Your move: host innovation sabotage meetings. At Tesla, Elon Musk's team spends 3 hours every quarter drafting a plan to ruin Tesla. They then neutralize those threats. When engineers proposed cutting battery range to save costs, the sabotage team argued, customers will defect to Rivian. Tesla doubled down on 300-plus mile ranges instead. Role 4, the investor. Stop pitching what you want. Sell what they fear. Canva didn't raise $100 million by shouting design for all. Melanie Perkins rewrote her pitch to answer investor nightmares. How do you scale when Adobe owns 90% of creatives? She proved SMBs were underserved, showing 75% couldn't afford Photoshop. Investors wrote checks within 48 hours. Uber's Travis Kalanick won funding by selling a pain point, not a product. Taxis waste $12 billion yearly on inefficient dispatch. Investors didn't back an app, they backed a $12 billion leak. Your turn. Preempt objections. When Shopify pitched Sequoia, they didn't hype growth. They listed risks. E-commerce has 85% failure rates. Here's how we'll fix that. Sequoia invested $7 million. Real-world drills to lock it in. Hate workshops. VinFast and tweet cars based on surveys. They hosted Destroy Our Product forums with 100 angry owners. Result? 17 design fixes before launch. Field immersion. Decathlon's execs don't watch tennis matches. They play them. After a CEO fumbled a serve due to slippery shoes, Decathlon redesigned soles, boosting sales 40%. CEO as customer. Airbnb's Brian Chesky didn't fix check-in by reading reports. He slept in host apartments. Problem? Guests couldn't find keys. Airbnb launched smart locks. Revenue jumped 60%. This isn't empathy. It's tactical obsession. At Profit Architects, we engineer profit by engineering understanding. Let's cut through the noise with one brutal truth. You're not losing because you're dumb. You're losing because you're only playing chess from one side of the board. At Profit Architects, we've broken down the playbooks of titans from Jobs to Bezos. And here's the pattern. They didn't win by being smarter. They won by seeing more. Take Blockbuster. In 2000, they dominated home entertainment. But Reed Hastings, Netflix's founder, didn't just ask, how do we disrupt? He asked, what keeps a college student awake at 2 a.m.? Answer? Late fees. $40 for a forgotten DVD. Hastings didn't guess. He felt it. Netflix killed Blockbuster not with better tech, but by eliminating the pain point everyone else ignored. Profit isn't found, it's engineered. Or look at Starbucks. Howard Schultz didn't build a $25 billion empire by selling coffee. He sold a third place, a refuge from the grind. He sat in his own stores for hours, watching people linger over lukewarm lattes. He noticed how a barista's smile could turn a bad day around. So he trained staff to care first, sell second. Result? Customers stayed for hours, spending $5 instead of $2. Profit isn't found, it's engineered. Here's the kicker. This isn't reserved for billionaires. It's a repeatable formula. At Profit Architects, we've taught founders to engineer profit by engineering understanding. One SaaS CEO thought his product was too technical for small businesses. Then he spent a week answering support tickets. He realized users weren't confused by features. They were scared to mess up accounting. He added guided walkthroughs and a panic button for help. Revenue jumped 60% in 90 days. Another example. A logistics startup burned through $2 million trying to compete with Uber Freight. Then the founder drove 100 routes himself. He discovered drivers hated waiting at warehouses for hours. He built a real-time tracking system for shippers and charged a premium. Now, 80% of his fleet uses it. Profit isn't found, it's engineered. But here's where most leaders fail. They think perspective shifting is a one-time exercise. It's not. It's a muscle. Apple's Steve Jobs didn't just test the iPod once. He used it until his fingers got tired. He redesigned the scroll wheel after watching his mom fumble with buttons. That obsession drove 200 million iPhone sales in a decade. So what's the takeaway? Your market doesn't care about your genius. It cares about being understood. Customers don't buy products. They buy relief from friction. Employees don't follow titles. They follow leaders who get their grind. Investors don't fund ideas. They fund solutions to problems they've felt themselves. This is why Netflix crushed Blockbuster. Why Starbucks became a community. Why Amazon Prime redefined retail. They didn't guess. They lived. Now, ask yourself, when's the last time you called your own hotline as a furious customer? When's the last time you spent a day in your warehouse, or call center? When's the last time you became your enemy to predict their next move? If the answer is never, that's your bottleneck. At Profit Architects, we don't just teach strategies, we build systems. Systems to see what others miss. Systems to feel what others endure. Systems to engineer profit by engineering understanding. So here's your challenge. Next week, spend 8 hours trapped in your customer's journey. This quarter, simulate an attack plan against your own business. Every month, swap roles with someone on your team, CEO to intern. Because the moment you stop guessing and start living, the game changes. Markets reward those who see more, who feel more, who become more. And if you're done relying on luck, gut instinct, or hoping the next viral campaign saves you, hit subscribe. Turn on the bell, because in the next video, I'll show you how to scale this mindset across your entire team. Profit isn't found, it's engineered.